we wanted to mention our co-sponsors for this event, organized by Denise Filias, professor in Spanish and Portuguese, who will be hearing a great deal later from her and about the work she's doing. But she brought in our two guest speakers who are starting out a 3-day program here, so I hope you all will see the rest of the publicity for the other events, which we'll announce later on. But in any case, many co-sponsors for our two guests for the set of events: the Jewish Studies Working Group, the Anne Frank Initiative, International Programs, the Open Center for Advanced Studies, the UI Center for Human Rights, the Department of Spanish and Portuguese, the Department of History, and the Department of Religious Studies, and the Department of Classics. So thanks to all of those units for helping to make this visit possible. All right, here's all the members of the Jewish Studies Working Group who worked together to design this concentration as well, people that we want to thank. Thanks also to Dean Sarah Sanders, Dean Roland Javit, here, back there, Cornelia Lang, who we'll hear from a little bit later on. The Dean's office was enormously helpful to us in putting together the Jewish Studies program and also facilitating these events. I won't talk long, that is Ari, I won't talk long. But I am tremendously proud of the fact that we are inaugurating our Jewish Studies concentration with an event in Sephardic studies. This is important to me on two levels. Academically, because I work in Sephardic and Mizrahi studies myself. Jewish studies has long been dominated by a focus on Ashkenazi Jews, that is to say, the Jews of Central and Eastern Europe, at least in terms of the modern period. Recently, however, there's been a real renaissance and revitalization in the fields of both Sephardic and Middle Eastern Jewish studies. And I think the fact that we are beginning our official commitment to Jewish studies with this event highlights our potential to be at the cutting edge of Jewish studies and our desire to represent the Jewish experience in all its diversity. On a personal level, it is also really meaningful to me because I grew up in a Sephardic synagogue, Shearith Israel in New York, which we always just called the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue. My father was from Yemen, moved to Palestine when he was 4, and then emigrated from Israel to the US in the 1950s. Because of his personal history and because Yemeni and Sephardic liturgies are so similar, he made a point of sending me to that synagogue, and he himself taught Hebrew and dance there. So much of my formative Jewish education was there. I loved it there. At the time, I didn't realize the deep historical importance of that synagogue. It had been established in 1654 by Sephardic Jews who left Dutch Brazil when the Portuguese defeated the Dutch, making it the first Jewish congregation in North America. And it remained the only Jewish congregation in New York from 1654 to 1825. I also didn't know that many of the first Jewish communities in the US and North America were Sephardic, including in Newport, Philadelphia, Savannah, Charleston, and Montreal. And I didn't know that because by the time I was growing up, New York and American Jewish culture was so heavily influenced by Ashkenazi culture. I'm guessing that many of you didn't know this either. Why? Because we think of Jews and we think of Jerry Seinfeld or maybe Albert Einstein or Barbara Streisand. And in many ways, because of the great wave of Ashkenazi immigration in the late 19th century and the achievements of those immigrants and their descendants, Sephardic history has been obscured. So I'm thrilled that we are beginning our Jewish studies with Sephardic studies. Okay, says Ari, I've spoken enough. I want to turn the floor over to Lisa Heinemann. I already introduced myself. I'm not going to do that. But I will say a couple of things that Ari is officially the NC. I am actually officially the person speaking for the Jewish Studies program here. And I just wanted to say a little bit about how the new Jewish Studies program came into existence. We actually have quite a long history of teaching University Archive, rifling through the papers of Leo Schwartz, who had been the director of the American Joint Distribution Committee, which helped out Holocaust survivors in Europe in 45, 46, 47, and then became a professor of religious studies at the University of Iowa and had quite a distinguished career here. My students are working on his papers. That's what happens if you take a history course. Work in archives. And of course, he wasn't the last or the first. We have a long history of really terrific Jewish studies here, but nothing that was recognizable as a Jewish studies program. And what that meant is that students tended to find our courses by chance. And really, our impetus was students' push. Students saying, we would like to have something that is formally called Jewish studies. We want to know where to find your courses. We want to know how to find the faculty who are interested in this field. For some of them, we want to have a credential on our transcript because we're going into a field where that might be relevant. So in fall of 2019, the Jewish Studies Working Group, which I already mentioned, and the Jewish Studies Network formed really to design a curriculum for a Jewish Studies program and to move it sort of through the many steps required in a state university to do anything. That was fall of 2019. A few things happened to slow us down subsequently. But now here we are. We have courses ranging from Gen Ed survey courses to highly advanced senior level courses in units ranging from history, my own field, languages and literature, including English, Spanish and Portuguese, German, Biblical Hebrew, Aramaic, a range of literature and language fields, religious studies, of course, social justice, and much more. We welcome certificate students who want to do a Jewish Studies certificates, but we're also very pleased that the greater visibility has simply brought more students who want to take one or two courses, want to learn a few things. We're a liberal arts college, very much welcome students dipping their toe in, learning a few things, and making that part of the whole. Many, many hands went into the project of building this Jewish Studies program. First of all, of course, the members of the Jewish Studies Working Group and the Jewish Studies Network. And I want to especially tip my hat, as it were, to Bob Cargill of Classics and Religious Studies, who had a vision for a formal Jewish Studies program even before the formation of our group, and has been very much part of the effort. Teresa Mangan, the director of the Obermann Center for Advanced Studies, which hosted the working group for several years. Russ Gannon, the director of international programs, which hosted the Jewish Studies Network. And of course, the staff of those offices who were very important in helping us with financial matters, programming, and so on. Very great thanks to the students who prodded us along to actually get this where it needed to be. And finally, of course, thanks to Dean Cornelia Lang of the Undergraduate Office, Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs, who was really central in the programmatic aspects and the business of kind of moving us through the process, seeing to it that this would actually become not only something on paper, but something that's actually effective for students. And I'd like to invite Dean Lang to say a few words.
Thanks so much, Lisa and Ari, for those opening comments. It's really wonderful to be here today. As was mentioned, I serve as the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education in the college, and I'm also a professor of physics and astronomy. So as an astronomer, I have to make a few comments about the eclipse because we just went through this wonderful event together. It's a lovely, clear day here in Iowa City. And for those of you who had a chance to watch the eclipse or part of it, it's always amazing to watch a celestial phenomenon occur just as predicted by modern tools and calculations. Because we can predict these events with such accuracy, we are able to sort of celebrate them, travel to see them, understand why and how they're happening. However, in earlier times, before the origin and timing of these events were as well understood as they have been for centuries, if not longer now, eclipses tended to take people by surprise. You can imagine if this had just happened and they were most often associated with bad omens and foretold of difficult times to come. There are many early writings, including from the Bible and commentaries on the Bible, that reference the calamities, political, physical, weather-wise, that eclipses would portend. And some of these students will encounter in writings in the Jewish studies curriculum. Additionally, events were often marked in relation to these celestial moments, serving in some ways as a calendar of sorts. Luckily, we have the good fortune now, post-eclipse, to celebrate something that is a good omen, which is the official launch of the Jewish Studies Certificate in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. In my role overseeing the undergraduate curriculum in the college, I was so pleased when this proposal came across my desk, and it was proposed to our college's undergraduate curriculum committee, comprised of faculty and a student. That faculty body, along with support from our provost's office, approved the addition of the certificate late in the fall of 2023, and undergraduate students will be able to declare the certificate starting in the fall of 24. To quote from the proposal for the certificate, quote, "Jewish studies has long been a part of a liberal arts education. Secular studies of Judaism originated in German academia in the second quarter of the 19th century, and by the post-World War II era, specialists occupied faculty positions in many American universities. Interdisciplinary Jewish studies programs evolved alongside women's studies and Black studies starting in the 1970s. So by adding this certificate, the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and the University of Iowa will join our peer institutions in having an officially recognized Jewish Studies undergraduate credential. And for that, we are very, very excited. The Jewish Studies certificate, as Lisa gave a little introduction to, allows students to choose from a wide range of courses offered by more than 8 of our academic programs in the college. Students take courses across 4 themes in the certificate: foundations, with wonderful foundations courses that have been developed and approved for Gen Ed status, so students may find themselves in these courses without even knowing that that was why they took it. Cross-chronological, which compares different time periods and eras. Ancient and medieval world, courses in that area for which we have a very robust set of offerings. And then, of course, a nice set of offerings in the modern world. As Lisa said, students also have the opportunity, which is very special, to study ancient and modern languages alongside other coursework as options, such as Hebrew, Aramaic, and Yiddish. Some of these courses are offered here, and some of them are offered through our Big Ten course share program. And those courses can count for application to the certificate. In addition to students developing a knowledge of important events, figures, and topics in Jewish history and cultures, certificate students learn to understand the diversity of Jewish experience and practice, and the appreciation for the problems, including bias, that arise when essentializing any group, community, or tradition. We are lucky to have faculty in our college who offer the wide range of courses that comprise the certificate, and we also hope that the formation of the certificate will lead to scholarly collaboration and engagement across the university and also, importantly, our community. So welcome to this wonderful event. We're looking forward to hearing from our speakers, and I hope you enjoy the program.
While the college is currently undergoing some restructuring, and during that time we will be a bit of a wandering Jewish studies program, and we're grateful to the history department, which is going to be our administrative home for that time, and of course the staff of the history department that will be helping us out. As we move towards a permanent home, we note the importance of collaboration, not only to healthy civic life and constructive geopolitics, but also to academic life. And for that reason, we're especially looking forward to working with our colleagues in allied interdisciplinary fields, including African American Studies, Latine Studies and Native American Indigenous Studies. So that's, the transdisciplinary work is certainly a large part of what we'll be up to, and those are very important connections for us. I would like now to introduce Professor Denise Rios of Spanish and Portuguese, and thank you for organizing this event and having the idea that this might be just the perfect moment to have our official celebratory launch in the presence of two terrific guest scholars and public humanists. So, Denise, you can take things from here.
Thank you so much. This is really a very exciting event for me. I'm so thrilled with how central Sephardic studies can be in this launch event, and I'm so thrilled to have these two speakers in particular here to help us start this program. So we will be having a conversation between myself, Dr. Jesus Hamrina, Dr. Isaac Amon. We'll talk for about half an hour or so. We'll open up for questions to the audience, and then following this event, there will be a reception. So I'm going to start by introducing the two speakers. Dr. Isaac Amon is an adjunct professor at Washington University School of Law and director of academic research at Jewish Heritage Alliance, a global educational organization dedicated to promoting the legacy of Sephardic or Iberian Jewry to the world at large. He graduated summa cum laude in legal history with highest honors for his thesis on the Spanish Inquisition. He then earned a JD LLM in dispute resolution and a JSD or PhD in law in comparative criminal procedure, all from Washington University in St. Louis. A former legal fellow at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia in The Hague, and an ISIS war crimes investigator, he is a forthcoming law review article on the Inquisition, Jews, and the early American Republic. The grandson of Mizrahi, Sephardi, and Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants into the United States in the 20th century, he lives in St. Louis, Missouri, and frequently speaks on criminal justice issues, legal history, anti-Semitism, and Jewish memory. Dr. Jesus Hamrina is Associate Professor of Spanish at Pacific University in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He is the co-author or co-editor of 3 books about Sephardic studies, including The Jews of Cuba, 1492 to 1902, and The Jews of Zamora, an annotated chronology. He is also a poet and a literary translator. In 2013, Dr. Hamrina founded the Centro Isaac Camanton, named after the 15th century Talmudic scholar known as the Gaon of Castile, and he organizes an annual Sephardic Studies Conference in Zamora, Spain. In 2014, Dr. Hamrina was awarded the Medal of the 4 Sephardic Synagogues in Jerusalem for his research on the medieval Jewish community of Zamora. Among his other duties at Viterbo, Dr. Hamrina coordinates the Latin American and Latinx Studies program. Notably, this program was recognized by the Jewish Sephardic and Oriental Council in Jerusalem in 2019 for the inclusion of Sephardic topics in the curriculum, research, and programming. So help me welcome Dr. Amon and Hamrina to Iowa City. So I want to make sure that everyone can hear. Okay, so can people hear me? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to start this conversation by asking a very fundamental question, namely, what does the term Sephardic mean and where does it come from? Let's start with Isaac.
Well, thank you, Denise, and thank you to everyone who made this event this week on such, again, a magnificent day of reality. Needless to say, Sephardic history has been eclipsed by the Ashkenazi narrative over time. So I hope, as the Dean said, this the solar eclipse will portend better and more inclusive future and discussions in terms of Jewish studies. So Sepharad, and my bio in a sense kind of gave it away, but historically and geographically it has a very specific connotation, and that is Jews who came from the Iberian Peninsula, arrived to, lived on, and have an origin in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. Over time, of course, that definition is broadened, particularly after 1492, due to the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and then the forced conversion of Jews in Portugal. Later decades and centuries, they're going everywhere throughout the Mediterranean, to the Ottoman Empire, North Africa, and all throughout Europe, eventually, of course, to the New World, to the Americas, to Brazil, the Caribbean, and of course to this very continent. And so, of course, Sepharad comes to encompass, in many ways, everything that's not Ashkenazi. And this idea, I'll just add, is further effectively confirmed, at least in the modern state of Israel, after its birth in 1948, when they had to decide jurisdictionally where do these Mizrahi Jews fall, under whose aegis, with the chief rabbi of Ashkenazi Jewry or Sephardic Jewry, because of this very close identity and mixture between Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews. It's perhaps not surprising Mizrahi Jews fall under the control of the Sephardic rabbinate. But remember, Sepharad means Iberia.
Anything you'd like to add, Jesus?
No, Sepharad is Spain and Portugal. That's it. I mean, there is no. First of all, thank you, Denise. Can you guys? This?
I think that song is yours on.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Oh.
All right. So basically, that's the definition of Sepharad in general, right? A different thing will be Sephardi. For that we have a conversation. We can talk about that. But thank you, Denise, for the invitation and everybody involved in this program. I think it's a really important thing that is another pioneering effort that the University of Iowa is doing, including the Sephardic history and culture into the Jewish studies in general. I'm very happy today because I graduated from this university in the year 2005. I did my PhD in Spanish. Denise was one of my professors, and I really have very fond memories of this city, this place. I even lived here in Iowa City until 2021. I now live in Decorah, Iowa, where I commute to La Crosse, Wisconsin all the time. But I came directly I'm from Cuba. I came directly from Cuba to Iowa City to do my PhD here. So all my life in the United States, I've been in the state of Iowa. So I'm very happy of being here. Now, regarding the term of Sepharad, that's the definition, the classic definition of Sepharad. A different thing is Sephardi, and you touched on that a little bit, because the term Sephardi was assumed for everything that was known as Ashkenazi, right? But not all Sephardi are actually Sephardi. Many of the Sephardi that are considered Sephardi today, they actually are Mizrahi, meaning that they are of Jewish Arabs, right? Sephardi means basically people that speak Ladino or that speak Judeo-Spanish or Judeo-Español, right? And I take the opportunity to say to the people that are doing the program here, please include Spanish and Portuguese into that program, because many of the literature of the Sephardi are written in Spanish or in Portuguese, because it was the main language of the synagogues in Europe for more than 3 centuries, right? So I think Spanish and Portuguese is very important to be included into that program. In the definition of the Sephardi, I will also include the Bnei Anusim. Bnei Anusim are the people who are descended from those prosecuted by the Inquisition, right? The Bnei Anusim means the children of the forced to convert to Christianity. And there is a movement right now globally about this community that is particularly growing in the Americas, because as you mentioned, many of the conversos came in the Americas starting in 1492. So there is a huge community of the descendants of these communities. Now, there is another community that is called it's an emerging community, right? It's a new emerging Jewish communities in the Americas that are not necessarily Sephardians, but they are very influenced for the history of the Sephardi, because the language that I speak, which is mainly Spanish and Portuguese, right? But this movement, these new emerging communities in the Americas, they are very connected with the Haredi movement, with Chabad and other movements as well. But they are also very into the Sephardic culture and history. So, to the idea of who is a Sephardi right now is a very complex answer. But everybody comes from Sephara. Sephara is the starting point of all these groups and cultures and descendants of the Sephardi for so many centuries, right? So I just want to add that complexity to the topic because I think that we should be mentioning the Bnei Ausin and other groups as well.
Thank you so much, Jesus and Isaac. Thank you so much. Obviously, you have to pay attention to these buttons. So the title of this series of events is called Jewish Stories of Identity, Belonging, and Belonging. And this title was inspired by some undergraduate students who had participated in one of the Anne Frank Initiative meetings, talking about how interested they are in Jewish stories. And so I really would like to start by asking the two of you if you'd be willing to share your Jewish story with us. Start with Isaac, please.
Well, I like to think of my own family history as encapsulating this moment, a sense of Jewish unity through diversity. Again, my bio touched on it, but on my father's side, and I'm very proud my dad came with me today from St. Louis, so he's here. From Istanbul, Turkey, back to Spain to 1492. So the Sephardi side, my grandfather, for whom I'm named, of course, spoke Ladino. He passed about 5 years ago, but 7 languages. And then, of course, my grandmother on that side was from Aleppo and then Beirut, so Mizrahi Jew. So didn't speak Ladino, of course, and they mainly communicated in French. And then they ended up moving to Chicago. My dad was a small boy at that time. And my mother's side is the Ashkenazi side from Ukraine. My grandmother survived the pogrom in the interwar years, right after the Russian or Bolshevik Revolution in 1919 or so, hid under a barrel of hay, and it took her family about 3 years to go from Ukraine, small village Tolchin, across the border into Romania to get visas somehow from the American Embassy in Bucharest to go via France, Cherbourg, to Ellis Island. And they arrived in November of 1922, so of course just before America closed its doors to many of these refugees in 1924. And then my grandfather grew up in St. Louis, Ashkenazi on that side, but his parents had come from Belarus and Lithuania. So I like to say that the Passover Seders were very special, a synthesis of these traditions, and you could hear Yiddish, Ladino, Arabic, Greek, so on and so forth. And so they exist in memory, and I'm, again, very proud to be here for this moment for everyone.
Thanks so much. And Jesus?
My story is different. My story is different because I know that I have Sephardic ancestry in both sides of the family, my father and my mother. But this was only rumors in the family, like in many places in Latin America. Okay, in Latin American history is full of rumors about Jews living in many places in the Americas. Remember that the Inquisition lasted for more than 3 centuries. Being Jews and being openly Jews in the Americas was very difficult. Actually, there was any open Jews in the America until 1634, when the Sephardi from Amsterdam came to the Americas. So the story here is that the same thing happened in Spain. Okay, exactly the same thing. For 4 centuries, more than 3 centuries, the Inquisition was there. It was very difficult for people to say, I am Jewish, I have Jewish ancestry, I am anything Jewish. It could cost their life, okay? But that doesn't mean that people continue practicing Judaism for many centuries. There is something called, maybe you are familiar with it, the concept of crypto-Judaism. And this is another thing that is very connected to the idea of Sepharad. Crypto-Judaism was a practice that in Spain since the 7th century, when the Visigoths implemented the first expulsion of the Jews. Everybody talks about 1492, like the big expulsion of the Jews, but in reality there were several expulsions of the Jews, not only in Spain, but also in Europe. From France, 14th century, from Germany, from the 14th century, and from Spain in the 15th century. That created a culture of silence around everything that was Jewish in the Spanish-speaking world, including Spain and Portugal. Now, one of the titles that I proposed to Denise to present in one of the classes was Jews beyond Judaism in northwestern Spain, right? Because when I went there for the first time, I encountered many people that said to me, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish. However, they didn't go to any synagogue. There was no any synagogue. They were mainly Catholics, kind of, right? But they say themselves, we are Jewish, right? And this is part of the history of Sepharad as well. People that they know, they have a memory, they know where they come from, they know their ancestry, and they even today consider Jewish themselves, okay? In 1927, around 1927, there was a person in Portugal called Captain Ramos Bastos, who dedicated himself to recuperate the old Jewish families that practiced crypto-Judaism in the northwest of Spain and the northeast of Portugal. Maybe you have heard of the town Belmonte, right? Bragança is another town, Carçao is another town. So people in those places, and Zamora is part of those places because Zamora is considered, is 40 minutes from Portugal. In many of those places, even if you go to today, they will call themselves Jewish. And they don't go to any synagogue. They don't have a rabbi. They don't do anything apparently Jewish, but they call themselves Jewish. Now, in the 1927, this person in Portugal opened, he started traveling for these small towns and asking to people to come out of the closet, quotation marks, right? And they opened a synagogue in Bragança, and that synagogue was functioning for several years until the, how can I say, the standardized or normalized Jews of the time came to Bragança and said to these people, no, you are not Jewish because you are not Orthodox. Right? So, and these people say, okay, these people that knew they were Jewish from before 1492, because their families emigrated from Spain to Portugal, and they established communities, crypto-Jewish communities in those areas. So the standardized Judaism of the time came and told them, no, you are not Jewish because you are not Orthodox. What did the people do? They went back into the closet until today, right? Now, and then members of my family, in my father's side, belongs to those group of people in the border with Portugal. Now, I didn't grow up Jewish. In the Orthodox way, I am not Jewish, right? Because I'm from Cuba, I grew up being an atheist, because Cuba is a communist country, religion was no big deal there. So I won't claim Judaism from that point of view. But, however, I totally embrace Jewish Sephardic traditions into my cultural background, right? And in that way, I align myself not only with the people that are in this region of where my family is from, that they are completely into Jewish practices and memories and traditions, but also because this is something that is been happening for many centuries in that area with many, many families. And now, after centuries, I know that my father's side, we have members of this Braganza community back then in 1927, yes, and before as well, right? So that's my connection with Judaism. But also, there is something very interesting point. There are a tradition in the Spanish American literature. For example, Cancino Asens, Rafael Cancino Asens, León Felipe, and even Jorge Luis Borges, right? They were not officially Jewish. However, they embraced Jewish traditions, Jewish cultures, and they even called themselves Jewish. Jorge Luis Borges, who was a disciple of Cancino Asens, at some point said that Cancino Asens decided that he was Jewish, right? So, and this is part of the culture that I come from. I come from for that culture in that region that then went to Cuba after that without being Jewish, however, embraced the Sephardic tradition and practiced the Sephardic tradition and recognized the Sephardic tradition and feel proud of that tradition as part or embedded within the Spanish and Portuguese traditions.
Mm-hmm. So maybe continuing a little bit more of this conversation, I guess the question I might be interested in is what is at stake then in labeling oneself as Sephardic, asserting a claim to Sephardic identity, and specifically the sort of transnational Sephardic identity?
Well, I think that you are familiar with the law of Spain and Portugal. Yes, you are familiar. In 2015, 14 and 15, Spain and Portugal, okay, start granting nationality to Sephardics or descendants of Sephardic communities around the world. Okay, they actually can have a Spanish passport and a European passport. Those laws are now on hold, right? In the case of Portugal, in the case of Spain, they are accepting applications anymore. But these two laws make a definition of Sephardic that is more broader, open than previous definition of Sephardic. Who is a Sephardic for this law? Well, anybody that can prove that they are descendants of the Jews expelled from Spain.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And there are many ways in which people can find out about that. And you can imagine the creative ways in which people are really finding out about that. Okay? I didn't have to do that because my family was always Spanish. My family didn't lose their Spanish citizenship even when they were in Cuba because they maintained their Spanish citizenship. So my father, my sister, all my current family, they all have Spanish citizenship. But many people around the world are really applying for this possibility. And this also brings the conversation about who is Sephardic and how we can be defined as Sephardic. Now, as you all know, being Jewish at this very moment is very complicated in many places, very risky and even dangerous in some places, especially in the Spanish-speaking world, whatever is happening now in Spain and Portugal with what is going on now. But Latin America in general is not an anti-Semitic place. It never was in comparison with Europe, right? I'm not saying that there are no prejudices about Jews and Judaism in the Americas, but it's different than in Europe. For example, in Mexico or in Puerto Rico or in Costa Rica, Panama, it's different, okay? There are many communities all around Colombia right now, Venezuela, Brazil is huge, the Sephardic tradition in Brazil right now. So, what is at stake here? Well, it's claiming a part of the identity of your identities, enriching your own identity, right? And opening yourself to be part of forgotten history, ignore history, okay, silence history, not only by the mainstream of Jewish stories, as there was also mentioned here, but also for the Spanish and Portuguese traditions, right? Because in the Spanish Portuguese tradition, the Inquisition did very good their jobs of silencing anything Jewish for more than 3 centuries, right? And it's very difficult to find anything, any historian from the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century saying anything about Jewish or the Jewish traditions in Spain and Portugal until second half of the 19th century, right? So what is at stake is also opening doors to a tradition that have been there forever, but people were not talking about it. People were not mentioning that. Okay? They were not recognizing that. And I just, and I'm not doing publicity about my recent book about the use of Cuba, 1492-1902, but I just finished that book, and going through the history of through the books and documents of those years in 16th century, 17th century, 19th century, there was no mention at all of Jews. However, there were many inquisitorial cases, right, in the Americas at that time. Okay, and there are many instances in which people prosecuted by the Inquisition said that they attended secret synagogues in the Americas, in Mexico, in Cuba, in Colombia, in Venezuela, in many places. So there was a history there that was completely ignored, and it was completely forgotten by the mainstream of history studies in the Spanish and Portuguese world.
Thanks so much, Jesus. So obviously, Jesus talked some about the citizenship, the law of citizenship in 2015, the Spanish law, and then also the Portuguese law. Would you be willing to say something about the citizenship and the situation with Sephardic citizenship in Spain and Portugal?
Sure. Well, I mean, as Jesus mentioned, the laws are effectively on hold. I mean, they're gone. Spain was very short-lived, only from 2015 to 2019. Portugal was longer, but of course, the scandal that erupted, as some of you may have heard of, in the northern city of Porto, at least put an end to it. And both governments claimed that the purpose of the law is a type of recompense or compensation for the historic injustice. The objective was fulfilled, as though effectively putting a time limit could ever, could truly atone for the injustice itself. It wasn't much. But they're gone. There's still tens of thousands of applications in the pipeline that have yet to be, to be analyzed, to be accredited, to be offered the passports. What I can say also is that from a diasporic Sephardic perspective, particularly Sephardic communities in New York, Miami, and Seattle, in many places, I think there's a sense of betrayal, a sense that they have held on for so long to the memory of Sepharad, of Iberian Peninsula. And in fact, the expulsion of 1492 for the Ladino-speaking Jews from Spain, is the defining marker in a sense of identity, paradoxically enough. Also for the Portuguese, it's the Inquisition, and it's having suffered through those trials and tribulations. In fact, that's what includes you, right? It makes you a member of the in-group. And if your ancestors didn't undergo it, then there's a sense of, we've had different experiences. So I think there was this short-lived opening. They thought, in many cases, that they could achieve some type of symbolic justice. And when the doors closed, there's been kind of renewed angst and frustration, I think, with how Spain and Portugal are treated, especially, as I said, I like to put it, and I'll talk more, I think, in another talk this week, but I like to call it the mystic chords of memory have remained throughout these throughout the global experiences amidst the Inquisition and amidst the migrations. And many people think, again, it's just kind of, the door's been shut. So it's frustrating in many ways. And I understand in a sense maybe no law can last forever, but it was awfully short to try to achieve again an atonement for 500 years.
Yeah, thank you so much. So both of you have worked a lot on Sephardic history in the Americas, and I'm wondering if there's a particular story that you think people should know about Sephardic Jews in the Americas. Maybe you could start, Isaac?
So, yeah, Jesus mentioned as well, it goes to the question of how we define Jewishness. But if we define it by a type of ancestry, a connection to having Sephardic ancestors, and whether they were openly Jewish or new Christians, the conversos, the ones who arrived as open Catholics, the number can arrive very quickly in an astonishing 200 million people, according to DNA, around the world, principally located in Latin America. I think one of the great stories is probably in Monterrey, Mexico. Closer to, it's the northeast, the kingdom of Nuevo León. It was founded by the Carvajal family of Portuguese origins, who were really Carvajal, but Carvajal, he founded it, Luis de Carvajal the Elder, and he came and he brought his family, and again, some of you may know the story. His nephew effectively led a contingent, a group, many of them were crypto-Jews, so secretly worshiping, at least according to the best of their ability, in the absence of a normative Judaism, no rabbis, no synagogues, no schools. And the Inquisition found out, they were tortured, they named, I believe, something like 120 accomplices, an extraordinary number, especially for a small community. And he was recompensed, he had to undergo a type of punishment, and he went back and he kind of fortified himself to continue practicing the law of Moses, as he put it, to Judaize, as it was known. And he was denounced and brought back, and he and his sisters and his mother were burnt in one of the great auto da fes, the Acts of Faith in Mexico City in 1596. So this is over half a century before the Jews from Recife, Brazil arrived in New Amsterdam. And we also know, at least from the inquisitorial records as well, that there were members who crossed from Mexico into what would be present-day New Mexico. So I'd like to also suggest the importance of the conversos to Sepharad, to the Jewish story, to the American story, really should undergo a paradigm shift. Yes, we celebrate 1654 as a unique moment when the first openly professing Jews arrived, a community arrived, but there were individuals who tried to have a Jewish identity long before, from as early as 1492. So I think we should push back the narrative from 1654, the very moment when the Jews are expelled from Spain. We know there are members of crypto-Jews on Christopher Columbus's ships who arrived. And then throughout, as I said, the 1500s, and perhaps even as early as 1565, there's another Carvajal who makes his appearance in St. Augustine, Florida. He may very well be the first Jew, quote unquote, to have arrived in what is now the United States. And I think, but again, it's the converso story, the new Christian story, that adds so much to the Jewish story. And again, it's inseparable from the legacy of Sepharad. And that's what I'd like, I think, people to take away. The one other thing, if I could just add quickly, is people associate crypto-Judaism with Sepharad, and for good reason. The crypto-Jews, as Cecil Roth, who was a legendary Jewish historian and the editor-in-chief of the Encyclopedia Judaica, put it, crypto-Judaism, in one form or another, is as old as the Jew himself. In every age, in every place, Jews have felt compelled to hide their identity. And whether that in our own times has been, living memory, Nazi Germany, Soviet Union, or perhaps even at this very moment. So the conversos kind of give us a precedent, but they also give us hope that Judaism will flourish and will survive the current trauma it's undergoing at whatever time and place.
Thank you so much. And Jesus?
I'm gonna just to totally agree. I'm just gonna add that which is one of the most popular books of the Tanakh among crypto-Jews.
Esther.
The book of
Esther,
Esther.
Purim,
The
holiday
book of
Purim.
Esther is the most popular book among crypto Jews, historically speaking, right? And this is because it's so connected to Judah. Crypto Judaism is so connected to the story of Sepharad that is ingrained in the tradition of the conversos, Julio-conversos, and Judaizantes. I don't know how to say that in English.
Yeah.
Judaizantes.
Judaizers.
Judaizers.
Yeah.
Judaizers. But about the stories, and again, I don't want to publicize my book, okay? And then you can go to Amazon and buy it. But one of the things that I found out doing this book is that the first documented Inquisition case about Judaizer was in Cuba in 1518, documented. The first one ever in the Americas, right? Juan Muñoz is called. It was just he was the owner of a silver mine in Santiago de Cuba in 1518, and it's early because the colonization of Cuba was 1511, right? So, and the first case of documented of Judaizante, I'm going to say it in Spanish, Judaizante was in 1518. So that gives you the idea of how close was that information over there, right? And the other point that I think is very important to say is that before Mexico was conquered by Hernán Cortés, all right, the only new word known to Europeans and to the Spaniards was the Caribbean. Was the Caribbean. And that means that most conversos leaving Spain, fleeing Spain to go away from the Inquisition, where did they go? The ones going to the New World, they went to the Caribbean, specifically to the Caribbean, to the Spanish Caribbean, Dominican Republic, which was La Española back then, Puerto Rico, and then Cuba. And it's not strange that then the modern Sephardic communities, even the ones that we are honoring today, the 23 that came to the United States, the main Sephardic community, modern Sephardic community in the Americas didn't start in New York, didn't start in any other place. It started in the Caribbean, in Curacao, Suriname, Barbados, all those places. Those places hold the secrets to Sephardic and Jewish history in the Americas, because everybody went there first before going to Mexico and going to Central America. So I think that is part of the. I'm so happy that you're saying that the Converso story is connected to the Jewish story, because the Converso story is a Jewish story, absolutely Jewish story. And the other thing is that not only Carvajal in Mexico, but there was also Maldonado da Silva in Argentina and Peru. Another case, like the same thing of Carvajal in Mexico, was Maldonado da Silva in Peru, that was processed by the Inquisition in 1649. And it's the same story that Luis de Carvajal, El Joven, El Mozo, right? So those are a couple of stories that regarding the use of in the Americas that I think could be the foundation for more research in that direction.
Thank you so much. I did want to ask about this question about whether you feel that there has been a renaissance in Sephardic studies, and honestly, if you would be willing to sort of contextualize your own work that you've done in the field, sort of within this idea of a renaissance of Sephardic studies. Maybe we could start with you, Isaac?
Sure. So, undoubtedly, there's a growing influence and interest in the Sephardic legacy, and the history, and in the memory, and that's obviously very good news. It's, for so long, there's obviously an unwillingness to look at it. I don't ascribe malevolent intent, but there was ignorance, and we're ignorant of what we're ignorant of, and you know, and so people didn't know about it or didn't want to, and perhaps in a sense know about it because it clashed with some of the traditional understandings of Jewish history, or even food, or language, or music, etc. I myself have some own personal story, just growing up in St. Louis. Great city, great community, but no Sephardic presence. And sometimes when I tried to bring some Sephardic rituals or understandings to school, I ran into opposition. But that's a story for another time. That was really kind of reserved to the home. But I think, you know, today, as I said, there's a growing interest and a growing awareness of it, both within the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world. And I'd like to, you know, Jesus pitching his books. I will pitch the organization, Jewish Heritage Alliance. I brought some brochures or little pamphlets on it so you can see what we do. But the idea is to research, preserve, and promote the legacy of Sepharad as defined by the Jews of the Iberian Peninsula, whether that's in antiquity, whether that's medieval times through the Inquisition and the global diaspora, or modern day, the story of the Sephardic Jews in the Holocaust, which has unfortunately not received as much attention, although there seems to be a growing interest in that as well. And we do this through bringing educational exhibits, historically, traditionally online webinars, on-site lectures, and programs, and also tours that go to Spain and Portugal to bring the stories to life, because there's nothing that can actually, I think, accomplish that objective. If you have the ability, the means to go, it's so worth it, to feel the presence, to go back to where the story began. And so I think that Jewish Heritage Alliance is, in a sense, you know, has played a role in this and has increased a lot of interest in it. Most of the audience, I'll admit, is Ashkenazi. They're not Sephardic Jews. And so that just, I think, speaks to the interest and the growing, again, awareness that this is indeed part of the Jewish story. And that's why it's actually called Jewish Heritage Alliance. It's not just a Sephardic story. It's a Jewish story. It's a human story.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. When I went to Zamora the first time in 2010, I realized that there was nothing about Jewish history there. Nothing. Zero. Nothing. All right? Nothing in the museum, the local museum there. Nothing in a national museum that is there as well. Nothing in any. There was no trace at all of Jews there. And I knew that there was a Jewish history in the city. Right? I knew that there was something there because I knew it from family stories. And I started to say, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? Because if you go to Toledo, they promote Toledo a lot. If you go to Barcelona, they promote Barcelona a lot. If you go to Cordoba, they promote Cordoba a lot. But places like Zamora, this small city, places like León or Fermoselle, for example, you were talking about Carvajal, nothing in those places, nothing at all. And then I started to do research, and I realized that in reality, Zamora has a very rich history, very rich Jewish history, okay? And in fact, it was the last important rabbinical school in Sepharad, okay? The last Sephardic sages of Spain studied in Zamora because the rabbinical school there. All the rabbis that were leading the communities into the exile from Spain and Portugal studied or lived in Zamora. However, that story was completely forgotten or buried into the main narrative of the city. Right? So, and then I started to work in two different, two lines. One line is, okay, why this silence about Jewish history? Why in the 21st century there is silence about this Jewish history in the city? And then about the what really happened there, documenting everything that was happening in the city before 1492, right? So my contribution is very little because I think that that's only one city in Spain that's gone through that completely forgotten history, their own history, right? And you can go to many other places in Spain where you can find the same situation, right? In which they had a rich history that's being completely erased from the history books, completely erased from the history book. And this is part of what we have been doing in Zamora. In 2013, we did our first international congress. A lot of scholars from around the world went to that congress, from Israel, from Portugal, from here, from the United States, from Argentina, from Germany, from France, went to that first congress. And then from that point on, we have been doing international congresses until last year. Denise was there last year. And we have been organizing events, and we have celebrated Shabbat and Hanukkah and Passovers, etc., Pesach, many other Jewish celebrations there, with people that are not Jewish, right? But then they go there, to celebrate Jewish festivities. It's very interesting from the anthropological point of view, right? How these people that live under the Inquisition for so many years, that went through so many persecutions, however, they yet have that drive and that fire for everything Jewish in that particular area of the Spain and Portugal. That has historical reasons. I mean, if you go to, I'm going to pitch another day presentation. If you go to our presentation in classrooms, we are going to be talking more about that. But yes, I think that in 2014 we did the Jewish walk in the city. We created a Jewish walk in the city, 5 points in the city in which we know Jews live there in Zamora, because there is the documentation, there is their data, there is their names, their businesses, everything. So we did 5 markers in the city there. And also, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, and also there are correlations with everything that is converso Jewish in that area, and is what happened during the Spanish Civil War. Okay? There were many Spanish, that besides the 6 million Jews that were murdered in the Holocaust, there were around 10,000 Spanish Republicans not like here in the United States, okay? No, very different Republicans. Actually, the opposite. There were around 10,000 anti-fascist fighters in Spain that exiled into France, and from France they were caught by the Nazis and sent to Mauthausen and Gusen, right? And many, more than half of those 10,000 died in the concentration camps, and the other ones were liberated in Auschwitz and Mauthausen specifically. And then from the first Congress, we have been trying to build that bridge with that community as well, because in Zamora, they didn't know about these people, 24 people from Zamora that were murdered in the concentration Nazi camps in Germany during the Holocaust. They didn't know that. So we brought this into the narrative and the history of the Jewish background of the city, something that they had to know about, because these people that were anti-fascist, they were also, at the time, because the Spanish Republic was very friendly with the Jews in general. And during the Spanish Republic, many Jews from Turkey, from Europe, came to Spain and lived in Spain, and then when Franco arrived, they had to leave again. And they went to Cuba, to Argentina, to the United States, and to other places. So there are correlated histories there in connection with the Jewish history across space and time that we wanted to underline and bringing alive to the present. And then we also created or worked with the city council in Zamora to commemorate those 24 persons in a monument in the city as well. So we did the Jewish walk in the city and a small monument for the anti-fascist fighters, Spanish fighters from Zamora. So.
Yeah. And if I could say, this is actually one of my big interests in this area. In fact, working on this presence of memory markers, and the ways that they are incorporated into regional memory, but also specifically heritage tourism activities around these sort of memories, and how they, of course, create memories through the act of visiting them. Yeah.
Just like to add, I think that all of this just showcases the importance of the fight against oblivion. It's a continuous fight. If we do nothing, the memory is lost. And in a sense, it might be as though the events, the people never lived. It never happened. And I actually am struck by not the plaque, but the accumulation of the sounds, the noises that's on the Voyager spacecraft, on the probes, right? And the idea is, as it says on the plaque in President Jimmy Carter's words, that we hope our time will live into yours, into the future. And whether it's just a symbolic act that there will be a small piece of humanity remaining in the cosmos, regardless of what happens here on planet Earth, or the fact that maybe future generations will find it, on Star Trek, or we will colonize other places. It's important to keep these memories alive. We hope that these stories that have already survived centuries, if not millennia, will continue to survive into the future, into the present of our descendants.
Well, I was going to actually open this up to questions from the audience, but I think maybe on that note, what we should do is adjourn to the reception downstairs and have a time to just chat with Dr. Ramon, with Dr. Hambrina, and I want to thank everyone for coming. As Jesus mentioned, we do have additional events, the 2 talks tomorrow afternoon, 3:30 to 5 in Phillips Hall, in which Dr. Ramon will be talking about crypto-Jews, which has obviously been figured quite a lot in today's discussion, and Jesus will talk some more about the Zamora Sephardi. And then Wednesday, noontime, Dr. Ramon will be talking about In the Shadow of the Inquisition, the U.S. constitutional right to liberty of conscience. So thank you so much.